It's no wonder I look so bald in these videos. I am bald. Look at that forehead. Good grief. This here is a 2005 Volkswagen Jetta. It has a BEW 1.9 liter TDI engine. And the customer's concern is that it has low boost. And I've done some initial checks, and this doesn't seem to be the normal problems that we deal with, like boost leaks and stuck turbo vanes. So I thought it might be worth making the video on. I'll get an auto scan and show you the codes.
Okay, here's our trouble codes on this. Down here we have P1495 switchover valve for EGR cooler, open or short to ground. That is a solenoid. And then we have solenoid valve for boost control. That's probably relating to our boost problem. And then we have intake manifold changeover valve, short to ground. Once again, that's a solenoid. And then down here we have motor for intake manifold flap, open or short to ground. And motor for intake manifold flap, no signal. That intake manifold flap has a motor inside of it and a sensor that senses the position of that motor. And then control circuit for glow plug controller number 1. And camshaft position sensor. We'll probably need to drive this and graph boost, and then I'll show you what the next step in the diagnosis should be. Okay, in order to graph boost, you go to engine. And I'm going to go ahead and clear codes here because it'll be interesting to see how fast the codes reoccur. And obviously 2 of them reoccurred immediately. Camshaft position sensor and motor for intake flap. But in order to graph boost, we go to measuring blocks, group 11. And these 2 fields right here are what we're graphing. So we go to graph. And I'm going to move this up here into the screen area so you can see it. And then I'll just take a screen recording because I don't want to have to be doing this while I'm driving. So, okay, here's our boost graph, and I'm pointing at these things with our pointer, but the pointer seems very, very small on your screen there, so I apologize for that. But the red here is RPM, and the green is desired boost, and the yellow is actual boost. And you can see there, this is during a wide open throttle pull. You can see there that the green comes up to about this level and maintains that level, but yellow never goes up. It just barely builds any boost at all down here. And why that is, I don't know. Maybe it's got a huge boost leak. Maybe the turbo's shot. Maybe the N75 is stuck completely closed. Maybe there's a huge vacuum leak going down the turbo. Or maybe with our trouble code, maybe the boost solenoid isn't being controlled at all. Now let's go see what trouble codes reoccurred. Cam position sensor, motor for intake flap, control circuit for glow plug controller number 1, switchover valve, intake manifold changeover valve, solenoid for boost pressure control. So if it's got a solenoid, N75 boost solenoid trouble code, there's a strong possibility the computer isn't controlling this at all. Now, how to diagnose this? Number 1. We are diagnosing the boost problem. All these other trouble codes may or may not go away with our repair. So we are simply going to focus on this because that is what the customer brought it to us for. Now the other ones, if they go away, that's fine. If they don't, that's fine too. We just have to educate our customer good. So here's the thing. What if this solenoid and this solenoid and this solenoid, and maybe not the glow plug, and this motor for intake manifold flap, what if they're all powered by the same fuse and that fuse is blown? My point is, in the diagnostic process, somewhere you have to go in and check that fuses are blown. Now, eventually we get to a schematic with a problem like this, and we'll see what fuses are powering specific devices like this motor flap or the N75 solenoid. but we don't want to go in that far. If we can just check every fuse, and if we find a blown fuse and replace it and that fixes our problem, that's a much easier diagnosis than going in depth into wiring schematics when there's 5 pages of engine diagrams. And so at some point in every diagnosis, you have to go in and check all the fuses if you have a problem that could relate to fuses. So that's what we're going to do right now. We're just going to check the fuses real quick, see if any of them are blown.
Okay, let's get some fuses checked. Whenever I check fuses, I pull this out. That doesn't have to come out, but it gives me a convenient place to hook my ground to. Turn the key on. Now this is interesting. Got a 20 amp fuse stuck in here. It's the wrong size. We'll put a 20 amp in there that belongs in there. Is this our problem? This one seems to be blown. Come back to it. These upper fuses here are of a design that can't be checked easily with a test light. That means that the plastic here is molded over the metal. There are some of these fuses this size that are not molded over like that. But so what that means is you can't check these easily like this. So what we have to do is further along in the diagnosis, if we feel like it's a fuse problem, we'll have to pull each fuse out individually and check them. But I'm not going to pull all of them out and check them individually. But we do have this one right here that might be a problem. And turn the key back on. And that seems to be blown. And I'll just put a 20 amp in here that belongs in there. I don't know how well you can see that, but that fuse is blown. And here's a new fuse for the one that had a mini fuse where a large fuse goes. I'm putting the same amperage in there that came out. And then this one had a 10 amp fuse in it that was blown. Let's see if it blows again. It did not blow. Start the car and see if it blows. It did. You might not have been able to see that on camera, but I could see it light up and blow. So all of a sudden this diagnosis becomes not a boost related problem, but how to diagnose a fuse that blows repeatedly. And to start with, you do a visual inspection, especially since we have trouble codes that relate to all those different devices. Okay, so for visual inspection, we're going to start right here where we're concerned with the boost solenoid. We have a trouble code for the boost solenoid. Now I would unplug that and do some voltage checks, or maybe just a test light right there. That's really hard to unplug because of this. But we also have a trouble code for this solenoid also, which is a switchover valve. There's the vacuum diaphragm that it controls, and you can see the vacuum hose goes around there, goes to that solenoid there. And we also have a trouble code for the intake manifold flapper, and there's the wire to it down there. See it? It's supposed to be covered in a loom covering, but it's that loom covering deteriorates. So, but we also have a trouble code for a glow plug, and that's this harness right here, which goes into this harness right here. These connectors here are because the glow plug harness has been replaced before, and rather than take the harness over there to where it terminates and plug it in. They just decided to splice it in. The older ones were spliced in like that. So I feel like that's acceptable. That ain't how I would do it, but it's acceptable. But this harness is looking pretty bad itself. You can see all the cracking on the harness there and right there. So that lets moisture get in, and eventually it'll cause a resistance problem, and it'll trigger glow plug trouble codes. But we also have a cam position sensor trouble code. Here's our cam position sensor wire. The wire runs over there to where the cam position sensor is inside the timing cover, but that wire right there goes into this harness. We know that there's a wiring problem with these cars. This harness here, watch when I squeeze it, it just falls apart. But the inside edges of it have a tendency to be sharp and bite into the wires, and they cause the wires to be exposed and short to each other. Now, I don't know if that's the problem on this car or not, but if they were, it might explain all the problems that we have. The fuse blowing, cam position sensor code, etc. I'm going to take this apart a little bit and get a better look at it. You may have saw this earlier, but somebody has wired this in place. This probably is popping out under boost conditions, but they've wired it in place, and that seems to be holding for now. But the customer did ask me to install what's called a doggy collar on here, and I'm not sure if the specific brand we use is doggy collar, but there's a clamp that goes here, and it holds that boost tube in. And these pop out because the tabs on them wear. I didn't see anything obvious down here, so I'm going to move over to here where I see the wire is exposed. But I'm going to unplug that and pull this harness up and out of here, see if I can see anything with that intake manifold flap wiring harness. Okay, I've unplugged this and pulled it out. As you can see there, it's pretty nasty. I was hoping to see maybe some wires exposed and shorting to ground or shorting to each other, and that causing our fuse to blow. But I'm not seeing that at all. We'll get a shot of the good stuff here. Ah, my eye! You can see on some of these wires, there is some fretting where the harness has dug into them. None of it bad enough to where they would short to each other. Really don't even think the wires are exposed. But that's what I'm talking about when I say the loom covering eats into the wire insulation a little bit. Well, my visual inspection has come up empty at this point. I've opened this up a little bit to see if there's any damage there. I haven't completely opened this up, but I'm not seeing any damage to what I'm used to seeing. And obviously, it doesn't seem to be over there either. So I guess it's time to get out a schematic. Okay, so here's our wastegate bypass regulator valve. That's an N75 solenoid, what I would call a boost solenoid. I know they say it's a wastegate bypass regulator valve, but that's not what it is. There is no wastegate on this car. It's a VNT actuator turbo. These are very generic terms that the writers of the schematic put on there. Now, if you notice, this has a common wire shared with the EGR valve 2 and shared with the EGR vacuum regulator solenoid valve. Those are probably the two solenoids we have trouble codes for. And it also goes over here to the intake flap motor, and we have a trouble code for that. And then if you follow this back, it goes to the glow plug triggering control module, which we had a glow plug control module code. I thought it said glow plug 1, but that could be related to our problem as well. That's the one thing I didn't visually inspect, because that thing is underneath the cowl where the wipers are, so that's going to be hard to take a look at. We might try and look through there and see. But then as we follow this back, this one, not the one we just followed, but this one goes to fuse 3410 amp. So I'm going to assume the fuse that we have blowing is fuse 3410 amp, but it'd be nice to know. But I don't think this had a fuse card. Oh yes it does. So there's fuse 34. It's the fourth one down in the middle. So we look over here and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's the one I pulled it out because it was blown, but that's the one we're dealing with. So since I've done a fairly good visual inspection on these things and that, oh, I missed one leg. And also this wire goes up here and branches off and goes to the cam position sensor, which of course we have a trouble code for that also. Now why does this vehicle run without a cam position sensor? It runs off the crank position. So since we did a good visual inspection on this device, this device, this device, this device, and this device, the one thing we didn't do a good inspection on was the glow plug control module. So let's go do that now. Glow plug control module is just barely visible right there. You can see the numbers on it. Kind of looks like a relay. It kind of is a relay. It's like a smart relay.
We got 1, 2, 3 screws missing. Why put in 4 when 1 will do?
Look at the condition of that cabin air filter. Yucky. Would you want to breathe all that blowing on your face through the vents? Don't really see any wiring problems there. The one we did the other day was completely burned up. Doesn't look burned up. Don't see any problems there, but I will put another fuse in there and see if it blows again. Okay, I'm zoomed in on that fuse box and I'm going to plug in the fuse. I purposely left it dark so that you could see it pop if it pops again. Turn the key on. And it did not pop. We'll check it with the test light. So I changed something. I'm just going to go out there and plug in that glow plug control module and see if it pops. I didn't hear anything. Did it pop? So did I accidentally fix it? Okay, so I plugged that in to see if the fuse blew when that was plugged in, but over here I have this unplugged, so maybe the fuse blows when I plug this in. I'll set the camera up over there and then plug it in. turn the key on first. Key is on. Okay. Did the fuse blow? I was over there. I couldn't see whether it blew or not. Okay, it seems to have blown this time. Guess I'll have to rewatch the video to see for sure. Let me pull this fuse out and look at it. Yes, it's blown. Okay, I think we're getting somewhere now. Doing nothing but plugging in the flapper valve seems to have made the fuse blow. What I'm going to do now is unplug it, put everything else back together, and drive it and see if the boost solenoid works, see if the other solenoid codes reoccur, see if the cam position solenoid, see if the cam position sensor trouble code reoccurs. Obviously this trouble code will probably reoccur for this flapper valve, but hopefully everything else will work and we can confirm that this is going to be a good fix. But probably we need to replace this, and that should get the car going. Okay, let's get a fuse in here and then we'll go road test it. Didn't seem to blow. Let me go ahead and start it. Didn't blow. We'll clear the codes and go drive it.
Let's get this code cleared. I guess I should say these codes. Eight trouble codes, clear them. And obviously the motor for intake flap code reoccurred immediately. We'll go out and go back in and see if anything else pops up. Just two of the same trouble code, motor for intake flap, short to ground, no signal. This is probably relates to the sensor that's inside there, and this one just relates to it being the motor being unplugged. So let's go drive it and see how it boosts.
Car wants me to put the seatbelt on. I guess I better do what it says. Alright, let's get this thing road tested. How do you guys like these bouncy road tests with the camera bouncing all over the place, giving you vertigo? Oh, she's got her power back. Well, I'm going to go ahead and graph boost. I hope it don't overboost because the vanes are stuck or something. That would suck that we did this repair and then still he has a turbo problem. I'll get boost graphed and then I'll show you the graph.
Okay, I've driven this car and it drives great. The turbo's working good. We have all the power we need. Boost is obviously working. And I've taken a screen capture of the boost graph. And I know it's hard to see my pointer when I move my pointer up here because the screen is black up here. But you can kind of make it out if you really watch. The green is the commanded boost from the computer. And it's commanding this much boost right here. And the yellow is actual boost. Actual boost comes up quickly, matches commanded boost, and stays under control the whole time that I'm in the throttle, and it obviously falls off when I'm out of the throttle. That's a good working boost graph, and I'm confident that this system is working now. And the fortunate part about it is probably fixing this fuse blowing problem is going to solve all his trouble codes, not just the boost problem that he came in for. So let me go out back here and make sure no other codes reoccurred. Probably have to change the screen size here for you. Okay, so we'll go in and make sure no other codes reoccurred. We have motor for intake manifold flap, no signal. And motor for intake manifold flap, short to ground. Those are the two codes that are there because I left it unplugged because that was the part that was blowing the fuse. It turns out my customer does have a parts car. He will be bringing me up that intake manifold flapper, and we'll install that and should have a fixed car.
Okay, our customer has brought up used throttle body, and Bob's installed it. He also did a nice job of putting some loom covering over the harness that was exposed there. And we still need to get a doggy collar. Obviously this wire, we're not going to leave it that way. We're going to get a doggy collar. And we still have to wrap this harness up here. But we'll, now that we have the new throttle body on there, and it's of course plugged in, we'll go road test to make sure everything's okay. Once again, just like the last video, I found this to be a very interesting diagnosis. And it brings to light the fact that when you have one fuse powering multiple circuits and you have trouble codes for all those circuits, it points back to the fuse. It also points out that you need to check fuses early in the diagnostic process if you have a problem that could relate to fuses. If you learned anything or you found this video interesting, be sure and click the like button. It takes a lot of effort to make these videos. If you want to contribute to the continued production of these videos, find the donate icon on my website at www.camshaft.com. And if you want to watch some more of my videos, we'll have some here and here. And please click the subscribe button. Thanks for watching.